Thank you.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes from our meeting June 5th.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded to accept the meeting minutes on June 5th. All those in favor?
Aye.
If you'd sign a copy and hand it down.
Yep.
Get a copy of it back there.
Yep. It's a very comprehensive meeting. It's no offense.
Thank you.
It's been over a year.
Announcements for tonight, just try to keep things brief, just two things. One, we have an invitation from the Queen Lake Association to the Select Board for their annual meeting on July 13th at 9 a.m. That's Saturday at the Congregational Church.
I'll go.
Okay?
Oh, really? You're not gonna hear it? No. You guys better yell.
And I didn't get a chance at the last meeting to share this with you, and I thought I would bring it tonight. This was the award that the town received from the North Quabbin Chamber of Commerce for the community art project. So this will be after construction is done, we will find a safe place to put it on the wall. Right now, everything is kind of shaking every day, so we'll be careful. Scheduled appointments tonight. We have Dr. Casamet from the school district with
No, it's not a public hearing.
Yes. Oh, and excuse me, just a reminder that the meeting is being recorded.
Yes.
Good evening. So I'm Chris Gassman, I'm the superintendent of schools, and we're going to probably just split this information up. Certainly, a lot of you have heard from me more than enough, I'm sure. So, but I just want to go over. We have a brief presentation that we've created here, and so I'm just really going to go over the vision of this district, and we just want to remind folks that providing a caring learning environment that supports relevant student-centered learning, of course, is our focus, and has always been our goal. And of course, the goals of our district is to create a budget that will adequately support all students, which we try to do everybody, to equitably support both elementary schools, which we try to do. And we'll be talking about that, I'm sure, at length tonight. We also do to continue to improve the academic standing of the district. So what I thought would be best, obviously, Margaret Hughes is the chair, and the budget is one of the actions of the school committee. And so I thought that it might be best that Margaret take it from here, and I will fill in wherever you need.
Thank you, Dr. Katzman, and the Select Board for having us tonight. I did want to also recognize the rest of the members. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Margaret Hughes. If I look familiar, it's because I'm Margaret Montalbano from town. Okay. We have Jeff Marks, Hank Mason, Lori Matson, Vicki Chartier, and Deb Kogel here tonight from the school committee as well. As I go through, I will try to keep the brief but pointed with information, and I do ask the rest of the committee if there's anything you want to add to what I'm saying, so please feel free to do so. So what we wanted to do is just kind of give you an update of where we are, because there's a lot of information and misinformation that's out there about process and procedure, what we can and can't do, and so forth. So we wanted to kind of give you an update of where we started, where we are, where we could go, and some other things. So I have the information here. Unfortunately, we couldn't get hooked up, but we can certainly provide this after this meeting to you, so you'll copy it electronically, as well as what we're working on. Basically, to talk about where the process began, we certified a budget way back on March 6th of $20,383,102, and the budget maintained level service. It also addressed required and targeted needs, operating expenses for the Templeton Elementary School, staffing needs required for building student reassignments for opening that school, which is PMES K-5, TC pre-K-5, middle school 6 to 8, and then of course the high school remaining 9 to 12 at the time. Addition of a Spanish teacher and also another 504 para support at the high school level, and also other level service requirements such as contractual increases, health retirement cost increases, etc. So we had our hearing on the 27th of February. We certified this budget March 6th. At that point, it's our requirement that we provide the towns with what the number is that we've certified, which we did. The towns then put their numbers together, have their town meeting. So on May 8th, Phillipston had their town meeting, and on May 15th, Templeton did. Both towns passed the warrant article to allow the ballot item for overrides corresponding to the requests to go forward. What happened then, Phillipston on May 20th voted, and they passed 125 to 105, the override, and Templeton failed 826 to 320. Okay, so what did that mean? You'll see some numbers what we originally certified on the next slide here. The original budget was asking Phillipston for an additional $187,834, and it was asking Templeton for an additional $988,335. Essentially for both towns, I think the number is about $1.50 on the 1,000. Again, Phillipston managed to do some of the funding within the general budget and not as part of an override, so you didn't really, you wouldn't have felt the full increase. But the net impact of just those numbers, I believe, is about $1.50. And if anyone knows better, please feel free to correct me. So, where we are. So in the event that a regional school district budget is not approved by at least 2/3 of the member municipalities, again, we are a two-town district, so both have to pass it. The regional district school committee shall have 30 days to reconsider, amend, and resubmit a budget. So we did that. On June 4th, we recertified a budget of $19,786,889. What we had to do to come up with that number was to cut middle school Spanish, the new teacher we wanted to add, cut our high school 504 support that we wanted to add. We had to move one teacher and one administrator back into our school choice receipts for funding rather than in the general fund. We also had to cut 5 FTEs, some other expenses, and it necessitated the reconfiguration of the district to support the cuts. So PMES would become pre-KK, Templeton Center 1 to 5, and middle school 360. Prior to the expiration of 45 days from when we certified, the member towns and member municipalities shall hold a meeting to act upon the appropriation of the budget. So Phillipston doesn't need to do that because you've already passed your budgets. Templeton does need to have a town meeting. So where we are today is we're waiting for Templeton to have their town meeting. So we can't really do anything else as a school committee until we hear back from Templeton as to what their number is, what are they asking, are they going to approve it? So we're kind of waiting for them, and if I have it correct, I think they're meeting tonight. We may know something tonight, I don't know, but I know they do a meeting tonight. If Templeton asks for an override as part of this request, there will need to be a ballot. Again, we don't know what they're going to do, so it's all supposition based upon what could happen. So the next slide just talks about the recertified budget. So instead of asking the town of Templeton for $988,335, we cut what we're asking for to $487,337, the number in half. And the additional funding request for Phillipston went from $187,834 down to $92,619. So that's where we stand today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what might happen to give everybody a feel for where we go from here. In the case of a two-member regional school district, if the revised budget is not approved by both members, the regional school committee shall again reconsider, amend, and adopt a revised budget and reconvene a district-wide town meeting. So the next step, if Templeton does not approve the monies, the district is still considered to have an unapproved budget, and we would then look to have a district-wide town meeting. And I think there was some conversation about, where is this meeting and when? We can't schedule something until we know what Templeton's going to do. So once we hear, then we'll be able to react to wherever we go. We need 14 days to advertise what it is that, when we're going to have the meeting. And we have the district that then has its own warrant. There's some things for the select board to do. I think you have to meet with the town of Templeton and for the moderator. So that's a process in between. And once we have the meeting, approval of the budget shall require the affirmative vote of at least a majority of those present and voting thereon. That counts for. So it's a majority of the registered voters in both towns. It's a simple majority. If for whatever reason, the voters approved a different amount than what is on the warrant, then it needs to go back to the school committee for recertification. And the school committee would need to recertify that amount to agree with it. Otherwise, we go back to a district-wide town meeting, we keep doing that over and over and over again. So that's kind of where we are from a process standpoint. In conjunction with all of this, there's some other things that are happening. And basically, what that comes down to is that if we don't have an approved budget by July 1st, Dr. Casavan has to notify the Commissioner of Education if that is the case. And the Commissioner establishes an interim monthly budget for our district and certifies an amount sufficient for the operation of the district, which shall be 1/12 of the regional school district's budget for the prior fiscal year, or such amount higher as the Commissioner may determine. So it's up to the Commissioner. If you've read any of the articles about people in towns going through this, pretty much it always says the Commissioner gives you FY19. We don't know. We're working with them, so we'll have some more information once we get confirmation from the Commissioner's office. That interim monthly budget remains in effect until we actually have a certified approved budget for December 1st, whichever comes first. So I want to talk a little bit about what does 1/12 mean, and then we'll get into what December 1st means. So 1/12 basically sets the budget of FY19, and I wanted to just give you some numbers for magnitude so that we understood if the Commissioner ends up giving us a little extra, the numbers may change, but I just wanted to put into place just a reference to see where we would be. We're still waiting, as I said, on the final number from the Commissioner, but our FY20 original March 6th certified number had us at a monthly number of about $1.7 million, just under $1.7 million. And the recertified number is just under $1.65 million. The 1/12 of FY19 is $1.55 million. So we have $142,000 shortfall if we have to manage the original budget number we certified. We have a $92,000 shortfall if we have to manage to the newly certified budget that we're working with. So we still have this shortfall that we have to contend with. The good news is July and August expenses are traditionally lower since teacher payroll doesn't begin until September. We do have some other expenses that spike in those months, but our expense base is typically a little bit lower. But once September begins, we potentially would need to make cuts so we don't overspend the monthly number the Commissioner gives. We are bound to that number. And what cuts mean is cuts equal staff. So that's this simple way of saying it. If we get to December 1st and have not agreed upon a number, the Commissioner assumes fiscal control of the regional school district, and he establishes the final budget for the fiscal year. He also stays in control until the end of the fiscal year, which will be June 30th of FY20, or until we get the budget approved for next year. So if he comes in, he is with us until June 30th, and longer if we can't agree to FY21. Certain fiscal actions taken by the superintendent or school committee are subject to Commissioner's written authorization, and the Commissioner may undertake any initiatives that he deems necessary to secure financial stability of the district. So I just also wanted to touch on one point with this number. If the Commissioner comes in, or even if we have a district-wide town meeting and a number gets certified, the numbers go back to the towns, and they have to figure out how to fund them. In the case of Phillipston, you guys have already appropriated monies, so funding shouldn't be an issue. In the case of Templeton, they would have to look at when they get cut or go after a potential override to fund it. There's no not paying the school at that point, so that's what that number is, and that's what it is for your own. So I think the key things that I really want to highlight, and this is where if any of the other committee members want to chime in about things as I talk through, is the considerations that we had when we recertified the budget on June 4th. We spent a lot of time, we spent many, many hours going over what it meant by not having that override pass and what it meant to both of our communities. We listened, and we listened hard when we had our district reorganization committee 2 years ago. We heard you loud. Both communities felt that they wanted their elementary schools to remain configured the way they were, knowing there would be some subtle changes with the new Templeton Center building. When the initial budget was crafted, that's what we did. We listened to your request, we asked for those monies to keep that. Unfortunately, we then had an override balance, and we now had to contend with the fact that the override margin in Templeton failed overwhelmingly, 3-1. Okay, 72% no, 18%, 28%, thank you, so that doesn't make sense, 28, 18, yes. In Phillipston, the override did pass, but just barely, 54 yes, 46 no. Okay? So when we considered all of these factors, we said, okay, what now are we being told by the community? We know you want to keep your schools, but we also know the taxpayer has very heavy burdens on their pocketbook, and we needed to be respectful of that. We also had a time factor we were working on. I just talked about July 1st coming around. If we did nothing and stuck with the same number, we still would have had to make cuts come July 1 because the commissioner was going to give us a number that wasn't going to be the FY20 ask we had. So we were faced with having some real tough discussions about what would we do. And even if the budget eventually got passed closer to the school year, we still had to make those cuts because, again, the commissioner didn't want to hear, well, we overspent a little this month. That's not how that works. Also, we had to consider equity in our schools and classrooms, class sizes for all sections and grades, and how to best manage the equity in the classrooms. Those were big discussions we had. We were very concerned about class sizes and what this might do to us. Also, growth and expansion, which kind of ties into the class size. We needed to be able to react to additional students and residents move to town, because if we get residents, we have no choice. They have to come here because that's what their right is. And all of a sudden, if we already have some crowded classrooms and 6 new students move in, and I think Dr. Casmet, you can attest to the fact that we get students moving in all the time, we now have to add them to classrooms that may already have a lot of children in them. We also needed to ensure we could strategically utilize our school choice program, which could potentially add some funds and create opportunities to increase resources, but we needed to consider that. What did any decision we make have for implications to being able to respond to school choice requests, and what did that mean for us? And then the last thing for me, and then I'll see if anyone else wanted to add more things that they can think of, was the district's sustainability and fiscal responsibility, and this was key. We need to look past FY20. It's not just this year. It's not just these kids. It's the kids coming up, and it's the kids the following year and every year thereafter. What are the risks to the district from a financial perspective? When it comes to sustaining our student achievement, the main goal of the school committee is to increase student achievement. Okay? We need to sustain it, we need to increase it. And what are the risks there? While we ensure that we're responsibly managing our budget, all while not putting undue strain or burden on the member towns. That's the key piece of this. I wanted to touch on school choice because we spend a lot of time talking about school choice and what we use it for. It's an integral part of our budgeting resources. We choose to use monies that should be for one-time expenses or ongoing expenses. We have over $600,000 in health care costs that we pay out of school choice. We pay the other little more than half out of our general fund. We moved over half of that money into school choice. We have about $450,000 in staff salaries that we pay out of school choice. We have some other additional expenses, and if we're not able to retain our school choice students, we're forced to make cuts, which leads to our residents seeking other districts, which is school choice out, which comes out of the general fund, and where we limit or eliminate our ability to have space to attract new school choice students to ensure school choice receipts and continue to cover those expenses. We're going to have to cut staff again. We're going to have to increase our general fund, and we're going to have to come back to the towns and ask for more money. Okay, it's easy to see $600,000 in healthcare costs. Even if you cut some staff, you're not getting rid of all that, and the towns have to be responsible to pay for that because that's where our funding comes from. Those ones I think I felt encompassed, but was there anything else that you guys wanted to add as considerations that you had?
We took everything we've heard, hold it up, sorry. We've taken everything we've heard over the past year
very emotional. They were. It was not an easy thing to come out there, and I mean, we couldn't do it in one night. We had to do it 2 nights. We didn't come out of there with, oh, this is what we're doing. There were tears. It was just not an easy thing to do, and I know that nobody's happy with us right now. We all know what the problems are, the issue with the solution, and that we have the solution right now. We're doing what we have to do.
Just a couple other reference points that I want to put out there because I've seen some questions and comments on some social media platforms. The school committee has autonomous, which is self-regulating, and absolute authority within limitations established by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to carry out the educational policies of the state and guide the education process. These powers, duties, and liabilities are vested and exercised in our regional school agreement. And our committee is organized as such. Therefore, it includes all facets of running that school district, including the composition and election of procedures for all members, apportionment of costs, including debt and capital expense, amendments to the agreement, assignment of pupils, and many other areas that are required by law. So basically, everything and every question that you have about how the district is run or things about the district refer to the regional agreement. It's online under the school committee section in a policy book. It's out there. Call the office if you can't find it. A couple other things, school committee constraints, and I think it's important people realize that as a regional school district, we can only create a budget with the monies that the state provides in aid and the local municipalities the district gives us. Grants and other income resources are limited to us. I will put my plug in because I always do. That state aid formula is flawed. You know it. You keep hearing the Promise Act or the Cherish Act. Anyone wants to come find me, I'll tell you why they're not going to help us. Help a lot of other districts. We're in hold harmless, which means we owe debt to the state. We get an additional $1,113,000 or so. Our enrollments decline, but they said we won't give you less aid. We're already getting more than we're supposed to. The education system. We have no appropriation authority as a school committee. We can only request funding from the towns to cover what we need and what state aid does not. We can use other resources like our grants, which we have done a phenomenal job, thanks to Dr. Kazadan and the Chief Academic Officer and several other people out there writing grants for us. We use our excess and deficiency funds, which is similar to a town's free cash. As you know, you've heard 100,000 times, free cash shouldn't be used for ongoing expenses. Guess what? We pledge our E&D, which is our free cash, for ongoing expenses to lower the allocations for this town and to the town of Templeton. Okay? We also have Medicaid reimbursements. We have some great resources on staff. We're able to bill the state and I think federal government, if I'm correct. Yep. They reimburse us. We use that to offset the costs of those services that we're providing. And I'll say it one more time, school choice receipts should be used strategically and not for ongoing expenses. But what are we doing? Because drastic times. So, I hope we've given you a good update. I will get the questions. Will want to clarify anything?
I have one question. Where you said you had to recertify the budget at 19,786.
Yes. Yep.
And that necessitated the reconfiguration?
Right.
Now, is that set in stone no matter what happens?
So what we did when we took into consideration that number is we had to come up with a scenario that would support all those considerations we had. All of what we value, what the vision of the district is, what our goals for the budget this season was. Equity, huge issue. Okay, how could we make it so that we can effectively operate with losing some resources and cutting funds? And the only way we could do that was really to reconfigure this way. We threw out, we tossed out, and every time we did, thankfully we have an awesome business manager and a fabulous superintendent who were there to tell us, yeah, but if you do that, then you have this. So there were a lot of pieces that were dependent on each other, and that was the configuration that best supports that budget.
So no matter what happens in Templeton, you're going to have to do.
Well, again, if once we find out what Templeton does, if it doesn't pass, it will go back to the school committee for recertification again. I'm assuming we're gonna be locked in a room for probably another 6 hours to talk through what we think we need to do to get a budget balance. We don't want state control. We don't want to lose our ability to control this district. I think the local towns want that either. Okay, if you don't mind, I'm happy to speak up if you should. I'll get what I'm saying.
I just want to clarify that if the town of Templeton has to have a special town meeting,
Yes.
regardless of what they decide behind closed doors or how they're going to fund it, they have to have a special town meeting. And that's where their town members need to go and speak out.
So Mark,
Yes.
just one thing is, the difference between the original budget and the redone one in June is about $600,000.
Yes, yeah, we cut it
So-
just over.
So $600,000, that, and the only way you can support that is reconfigure it the way you do.
Yes, that was that solution puts us in a position to be able to run this district. As I said, sustainability is key, and those were all parts of the discussion that we had. And I'm gonna let Vicky speak again because we're gonna take it.
So, also what I'm thinking, we have to think about is the children in Vermont. That was the main thing, but obviously, but not just the Phillipston, because we had the specific Templeton kids. We can't just cut the teachers out of the Templeton schools. Phillipston that their class sizes increased Templeton again. We had to consider that, and we talked about it, we argued about it, and that's once we took the emotion out of it. But that's
I think, I'll get Jeff to say, I think one of the things that I had said to someone this morning, I said, you know, we created a budget that was high on what the community wanted, and very low on the respect for our pocketbooks. After the votes, we've kind of had to say, how do we weigh that and respond to not just the community speaking about configurations, but also the community speaking about how much we're spending. And this is where we can get it.
And to reiterate, if we go to a 112, which is clearly what was going to happen with Templeton's loud and clear message about the override, we have to make cuts regardless. We are put in a situation whether when we end up with 112, we're operating on FY19 budget. We have to make cuts.
Yes, Jeff, you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to be very clear that scenario, okay, is only one of many scenarios that we look at. Okay, that was just one. When we behind doors, we had 8 or 9 scenarios, and we were going back and forth, and we were, pro and con each one of them until we finally came back and decided on one. This decision was not made by the
Doesn't quite answer my question. Regardless of what happens in Templeton, you're gonna go with the street configuration.
I can't 100% answer that, because here's the problem with that. I'm just gonna play devil's advocate. Let's say Templeton does not pass the budget. Let's say the commissioner only gives us FY19 monies. And when our business manager and superintendent look at these numbers and say, guess what, guys, we have to make even more cuts because we can't meet those numbers, we could be moving everybody to Templeton. Okay, so that is a huge consideration when we took this tack of where we go. So again, I can't give you a 100% guarantee only because I don't know some of these other things that could happen that are really outside of our control. If they pass it, this is the path.
Now, let me ask you the other side. Next year, when you come back for a budget, would you be looking to restore the $600,000? And if you do, will you bring the students back?
So let me answer it this way. If Templeton wouldn't pass that increase this year, we could certainly float a budget by, but I tell you, I don't think it's happening. And again, we have a lot of premiums, right? We meet well before to talk about what do the towns think they can support for the school. So if Templeton tells us in October, hey, guess what? You know, we found all this money and we're willing to give you all this money to change things back, certainly we're going to consider it. I don't think that's reality. I'm looking here, you guys have all sat there. I don't think that's reality.
I got a simple question. Joint town meeting,
Yes.
a majority of the combined voters, is one yes?
Yes, 50%, 50.001% have to say yes of all registered voters that attend a meeting in both towns.
So you guys,
Yeah.
okay, so you want to answer the
I
question?
will answer questions, but I want to be clear. We've heard you. We know your concerns. We've heard what you want.
Hey,
Hey,
let her speak.
one person will speak at a time.
We'd like to hear a question. We want to be able to answer your questions. So please come with us with a question so we can be able to respond to some of that. So, Kim, I'll let you pick who, because I don't know whose hands went up in which order.
It's right there.
I'm Sarah Leonard, I'm an angry parent from town. What I'm hearing a lot of is that the state is a boogeyman that's gonna come in and make cuts. But what I'm seeing is that Chris Cassavan and the school committee, you've already failed our town, you've already failed our kids.
Let her talk.
Have you looked at what this is gonna do to our property values? Because when you're talking about people coming into a town, you ask, what's the school like? And when you say, our town doesn't even have an elementary school, that's gonna chase families away. When you're talking about people coming in for school choice, our parents are gonna be leaving this district. So have you looked at that?
We had a lot of discussions about all of those things. So I don't want, again, we've already said, none of these discussions we had were taken lightly. Okay, we ran through all these scenarios. If the state comes in, again, they might say in numbers to close at school, we don't know. Your school isn't closing. Your school is not closing.
That is
Really. So
Please let somebody answer the question. And we are going to limit the questioning for 10 minutes. We do have other business tonight.
Keep it brief.
No, I'm not.
Shouldn't this be taken care of?
We are trying to, we've had several meetings with many questions, and the school committee will answer your questions anytime you want to call and ask them.
yes, and you know what? My phone has been very quiet, and I think most of my peers have had very quiet phones. If you have questions, please reach out and ask us. It's very simple.
Vicki, you wanted to ask
I would
something?
just like to reiterate the fact that the budget we presented supported everything that the towns wanted, including what the school committee wanted. That,
When did that come
No,
out?
please.
that was our original budget. That was our
The
budget.
original
for March
budget
6th.
did that, okay? We listened and we
We
researched.
certified a budget that supported everything. If you came up with the override, then you did. Did you come up with the override?
Okay.
Then you didn't.
Okay, now, let's take a question. Who has a question?
John Royer.
My question is, if the commissioner comes in and says, you've already overspent in the school system, your budget, and the town, looking back at the town and saying, the school needs to come back and turn around and decide where in the heck they need to cut. So, where do we go from here? Because the commissioner is coming in and telling you, you've got way too much money already.
You know what, I just want to clarify, the commissioner, that's not what he's saying, that we have way too much money. He starts us with a baseline so that they have time to assess, okay? I don't know.
I'm not saying you have way too much money, I'm saying that you've been awarded this much money through the towns, through the budgets and everything else.
Yeah.
And
Well, we
you
haven't been
come to the
awarded-
towns
we
and
haven't been awarded anything
you have
yet,
your
so-
request
Okay,
through the
hold-
town.
Hold on, I just want to make sure I understand, because we haven't been awarded anything. We don't have an approved budget. Templeton hasn't given us any money. By virtue of that, Phillipston hasn't either, because it's not a passed budget. So I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with where you're going so I can answer you properly.
Okay, so we're looking at the Phillipston budget and we're looking at what the compromised Templeton budget is going to be. And we're looking at what is going forward.
Okay.
And then, so now we're gonna take a look and say, okay, the commissioner comes in and says, this much money that you guys have been appropriated should be enough to run your system. Why are you turning around and looking at closing down a Phillipston system so that you can award the Templeton system?
Because July 1st, we're put on a 1/12 of FY19. We have to react to that first edict. And unfortunately, that's what we, and again, the commissioner could give us a little more money. We don't know. We can only go with what's in the statute that we have to respond to. He is in the process of coming up with a number, or his department is. So once we know that, we'll have a better understanding of, did the cuts we've already made agree with where he felt we should go with 112, or do we even need more? Because once we do that, then the next step is, if we can't come to an understanding with the two towns, by December 1 he comes in and he's going to tell us what the number is. But we're already well into the school year at that point, and that's why this is so difficult, to predict what's gonna happen and take actions on it. It's very difficult for us.
My follow-up question, so if closing Phillipston, where do we save any money?
Yeah.
If we're going to put preschool and kindergarten in Phillipston, where do we save any money by sending our kids over to Templeton? Where do we save the money?
Okay, so you
How
have
do we
you
save
have a
that?
principal, you have a nurse, you have a custodian, you have food services, you have maintenance. There's all of those other expenses we have not cut from keeping Phillipston open.
And we're not gonna feed these kids, and we're not gonna
Well,
take a
we already
nurse, we're
a
not
st-
gonna
we
have any of
We
that?
have a staff over there that does that, okay? So we don't need to hire, we can let the custodian go, we don't need to hire one in Templeton Center because we've already addressed that. So there are savings to be had by closing that building down.
Amy?
My business, my doesn't come to that.
Hi, my name is Amy Buzzard. One of the questions that I have is, if Templeton voted to pass, to build this $47 million school, and now they're voting to not pay for it, then why don't we go back to what happened last year, and they can have their students in Belleville Elementary and in Gansett, and we can have our school? That would save tons of money just in heating and everything else that has gone up substantially in the new Templeton building. So you have a lot of savings.
I would like to say I agree with you 100%, but I can't, because reality is that there's only a small portion of the need that goes to cover the new school expenses. We have contractual obligations, healthcare, retirement go up over 10% every year. Okay, boom, that's done. We have contractual increases. We have wonderful, wonderful teachers. I hear you talk about them all the time. And we need to pay them, we need to reward them, we need to tell them we value them. We have contractual obligations with increases to give them, okay? So there are all those other things, even if we didn't change, and I'm not even gonna go into what MSBA would say about us not inhabiting the building, so we're still not gonna save the money we would need to. It's false logic just because of all these other things that add into there. Well, it does. We have 10% increase in healthcare, 10% increase in retirement. We have contractual, those are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that make up the over $1 million that we
Slow it down, stop improving.
Garrett Van Dryer, Rose Road. History has shown that Templeton rarely votes over us. And furthermore, I doubt that they will pass it this time. And also, you keep quoting the regional school agreement. It says in the regional school agreement that it shall continue as long as there is no update because it has expired.
No, every 5 years, and we have reviewed it, so.
Templeton violated that agreement 15 years ago when they stopped paying per pupil, okay? So why are you punishing us? Because we are always paying for the school. When we voted on our budget,
Okay,
it was...
so let me answer your question, because you can stop there, I've heard it all before.
No. I haven't finished my question. Why are we are being punished because Templeton can't balance their budget.
Right.
Why is it that we have to send all of our kids, or most of our kids, to Templeton Elementary, where we have told you we don't want to be? We always pay for our schools, and Templeton rarely pays for their schools. They're not gonna do it now. It's gonna be cut and cut and cut.
Okay, let me
You're
answer,
not
let
gonna
me
get
answer
any
your
votes.
question, please,
Okay.
okay? So all I can tell you is I didn't enter into the original regional school agreement back in 1955
That's right.
for the two towns to join together. I can't speak to that. For whatever the communities thought, they felt they would be good together, okay? I can't answer that. If you have an issue with Templeton does or doesn't do, you really need to go speak with Templeton. You're directing this at the school committee, you're directing this at the school committee when our hands are tied by the monies and appropriations that we get from these two towns. So if you're that frustrated, I come speak to us, that's great, but also go talk to Templeton, talk to your neighbors in the community.
On a follow-up on that, we are paying about 36% of the budget, but we have 16% of the kids in the school, from what I've heard. If you divide those, we're paying 2.25 times what we should be paying as a per
You know
pupil.
what, I want to just stop you there because I don't have those numbers in front of me. What I would encourage you to do.
You have them, they're right
You
there.
should. I know, those specific things.
So now I graphed it, and over 15 years, we have overpaid the Templeton School District between $7 and $10 million. That's not very kind of Templeton to do to us.
Then, you know what,
So-
you have an amendment process that you two can follow if you wanted to make changes. All I wanna say,
think we should work on
Gerhard,
getting out of this district.
and you know what?
There you go.
We're done, that's not a question, that's not a question. We really only
Are you
tried
running this
one
meeting?
more.
Who's running this meeting? Point of order.
Sounds like the loudmouths in the back of the room, they're trying to run it.
I've got 2 more questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. We've already touched on my question a little bit. Just for thinking for this year, if you're keeping Phillipston building open and you've got the cafeteria, the custodian, the principal, the secretary, all those people there, how many kindergarten teachers are you expecting?
5.
So 5 teachers, plus the preschool staff. What is being saved by this configuration? Because all that would be extra to leave it this way is 1 5th grade teacher that would be coming back to Phillipston. So why don't
I gotta tell you, here's the issue with that, Christine, because we had a lot of discussion. How would you like us to do, should we use a hopper and put names of kids to decide who goes where? Because that, I mean, we made a decision to send the whole grades, so they're together, okay? By picking and choosing, that's really not equitable. The other concern is this equity piece is big, okay? And equity is also for the teachers, that they should be with there's best practices out there. You know, read up on a whole bunch of different things that we spend time on. So there's a lot of really good reasons for doing what we're doing that expand beyond financial considerations. So I hear what you're saying, but it didn't make sense.
being saved by I don't understand, I never saw that exact number. Like, if you're operating a building with one less teacher, that's nowhere near $500,000.
So here's the other piece of it too.
This upheaval.
Is like we being, is that an alarm or? Sorry, we don't need to go back to I think the other piece, Christine, is there's also additional transportation costs that we would
But I
add
was told
in,
to
so.
pay the company per day, no matter where they go or how many runs.
Yeah, but we may need extra runs. There was a whole bunch of considerations. I don't know, Dr. Haslett, if you wanted to, actually, I see Lori also, let Dr. C speak, and then Lori, if you had a comment to help answer questions.
So the savings is that as of right today, well, not today, but the last day of school, we had 5 teachers at every level. 5 kindergarten, 5 first, 5 fourth, 3rd, all the way up. We now have 4 at every level, with the exception of kindergarten. So those positions no longer exist, okay? It just, so I want to be clear, that's one part of the savings. There are also other staff positions that we did not, we've riffed them, reduced in force, and they are not coming back. That is where the savings starts, okay? So it isn't looked at by building, it's looked at by the district, right? So we had to cut $1.1 million initially. Then this configuration brings down to the $579,000 that we're now over budget, okay, that we have. So there has to be, well, we'll see what happens, right? Quite frankly. I don't know what Templeton is going to do. They could do a couple things. They could do an override.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Or they could cut it within their town.
I can't do that either.
Well, then we go to 112. And so 112 is pretty simple. It really is. It's just that the state is going to say, this is your monthly allotment until you figure it out. They use FY19 as the base. They look at whatever contractual obligations we may have, insurance, yada, yada. And then they consider that, and they're going to give us a number. They have that information. They've had it now for, I don't know how long. They've had it for 4 or 5 days. So they know that they have to assign us a number before July 1. Because we will have no money to spend, because we get the money from them. So that's where we're at in terms of the budget, but that is how the money, that's how the money was saved. Okay, that's not really saved, but that's how it was cut.
It could be configured though with 4 classes smushing into 3 in Templeton and leave ours here, and I said, fill it up with your kids.
Leave
We
who's
don't
there?
Leave,
Like-
if it was gonna be 5
Right,
classes,
right.
1 here, 4
Right.
there.
So make
Have
it
3
3 and 1.
classrooms, yes.
Right. We don't have enough school choice kids, because we haven't taken school choice for quite a bit.
There's a waiting list, though, Kathleen.
Yeah, we haven't taken them.
Fill 'em
We
in
don't have them.
Phillipston.
What's
Why
that?
can't we go
So
to
we don't have enough school choice kids at BES or TC to fill the void to make them each class at, pick a number, I'd have to do the math, 25, 26, 27, 28, because that's what they would do. Because no matter what it would be, without the override, yes, without the override, you're looking at classes of 28, 26, 27, 28, and 29. So if I'm not moving, if I'm keeping Phillipston and Phillipston, I'm keeping Templeton and Templeton, I would need anywhere between, depending on the grade level, 8 to 10 school choice kids per grade level to quote-unquote force them into Phillipston. At some grade levels, I don't have that because we don't have that many school choice kids because we haven't taken school choice in years.
How about a survey of Templeton students, Templeton parents, to see if they would want their kids to come to us instead, to spread out the overcrowding?
I've got one more question here, you answered enough most of the time. Yep.
Well, one of it was about the.
Could you just say who you are? 'Cause I don't
Rita
recognize you, I'm
Fuller
sorry.
from Baldenville. If Phillipston wants to be in Phillipston and the numbers are, we already cut them teachers, why can't we just keep their grades there and keep Templeton Center where they are? Whether they're smaller sizes or what, they're gonna be bigger class sizes. That's my one question. And my second question is, I've heard that now that if we go to Phillipston, there's gonna have to be renovations done. What does that cost?
Okay, so one, there needs to be renovations done on the building regardless. Okay, we have kids, students in that school, they need a new roof. Okay, things have to happen to that building, regardless of anything else, so
So where's that money gonna come from?
that comes from the town. The towns are responsible.
Town of Phillipston, right?
That's right.
Is it town of Phillipston or is it town of
We have the
Phillipston?
town of Phillipston. Excuse me. The town of Phillipston pays for its school building, the elementary building. The town of Templeton is paying for the Templeton Center School.
Well, if now we have Phillipston people coming to Templeton, and we're paying for the Templeton school, why don't we just keep Phillipston where they are, and they pay for their school, and we pay for our school?
And I think Dr. Casavan tried to address the other big issue with that, and we've mentioned the word a few times, is equity, okay? Our role as a school committee is to provide an equitable education to all students in this district. That includes Phillipston, that includes Templeton, including all of them, right? That includes every school choice kid that we bring into this district, because once we let them enter, they're ours, okay? We have 1,430 some odd kids that we're responsible for, and the decisions we make are made for the benefit of all those students. We don't look to say who's from Phillipston and who's from Templeton. We have to make the best decisions
Well,
for all those students.
why can't we, like they said, put some people, if they choose to go school choice to Phillipston, to make them size classes bigger, and keep Templeton if they want to choose to go to Templeton? Can we do a survey of that?
Okay, Dr. Casavan, did you want to respond to that? And then we're going to stop the question.
I don't know which part of the question.
Get it, having school choice kids.
So they don't have an option. So what we do, and we did this last year. I'm going to explain. So what happens is someone says, we want a school choice into your district. And we have a 4th grade student. We have a 4th grade child. We say, okay, we don't have any room at BES, so we're going to put you in Templeton, in Phillipston. They say, well, where's Phillipston or whatever, and I don't know what the school. I said, well, we give them the address. And so we don't have to say, oh, they don't tell us, we tell them. So a good part of last year, as we were we entered into the school choice list, because we haven't taken elementary kids for quite a while, we were trying to divert, push, prod folks to come to school choice in Phillipston. They can make the choice whether to do that or not. I mean, they can say, yeah, we'd like to, or no, but generally we never heard back from them. We accepted almost 5 kids, grand total. We accepted them. They never came back. They never came. They never went to Phillipston. So we can force them. We just tell them that's where they're going to go.
I'm saying like Templeton residents. Templeton residents.
Yeah.
If they choose, if say we need 30 kids in that class. And there's
So we already
60.
have that. So we do. It's called the school, intra-choice.
But right now in Phillipston, how many kids are in each classroom without us moving?
So I think that to
Without
summarize the question is,
15,
have the people in
19.
Templeton been asked if they'd like to go to students in Templeton?
We have 10 intra-school choice students from intra-school choice, Templeton to Phillipston. 5 have already asked to come back. So they can, all they have to do is ask. That's all they have to do is ask. It's not a, that's what they do.
Well, what is the class sizes in Phillipston right now?
Right now, with the old configuration, kindergarten was 19, I think, right, this year, right? Okay.
But we have 26 now in
Hold on, I need to answer. You're asking me stuff before I can even answer. Okay? So, with the override, which means we'd have plenty of money, right? 19, 19, 17, 20, and 15. That's what the class sizes were, okay? In the K through 5 configuration. That's what they were.
And
Okay,
now
so-
after the configuration, what are they?
I can't hear you, sorry.
I said, and now after the configuration.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
when
so
they're
after the
combined,
configuration,
20 kids.
kindergarten will be fine,
Because
because they have, well, remember, we're still taking them in, right? So right now, they're at 17 each, because they're still coming in, and there's 5 teachers. So I would put it, I have a little asterisk, 17, because I know that at the end of the summer, we're gonna, people are gonna go, oh yeah, I gotta sign my kid up for kindergarten, and with those numbers are gonna go up. But first grade would be 28, second grade 26, yep, 0.5, 27.5 for third, fourth grade be 28, and fifth grade is 29.1175 or something. No, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yep, yep. It's a lot. It's a lot. And we haven't even taken anybody. We don't. I mean, in other words, we don't know who's going to move in. You know what I'm saying? So move-ins have to be placed.
Yeah, no, okay, so I'm gonna say we're done, because a lot of these questions,
I have a question for the
Joe,
board.
in a minute, please. Most of these questions do not address what we as a town want to do moving forward, what this board is going to be doing. So we are going to move on. What is your question to the board?
I would like to ask the board to consider taking up a committee or look into removing ourselves from the district. Is that something the select board
We'll
should
be
look into?
talking about that later.
Great, thank you.
Wasn't the Templeton School only supposed to house Baldwinville and Templeton?
Yes, done.
Not us, right?
We're not done.
Next, Madam Chair, we have Ruth French, who is scheduled appointment. In your packet is some material that we forwarded earlier this evening.
Okay, and yes, I did forward information. And the first point I had talked in that information I forwarded was about a possible lawsuit. Again, while that's still a possibility, and kind of, I'm not opposed to that, but I did think I found a different solution. And that solution I found, interestingly enough, I was on the school district website looking at all of their meeting minutes from various committees. And something in the long-term planning committee minutes went, wow, is that possible? So I ran to my school regional agreement. And under the amendments part, it says an amendment may be proposed by vote of the regional school district committee or by vote of any town meeting of any member town. Any such proposal for amendment shall be presented to the secretary of the regional district school committee, who shall mail or deliver a notice in writing to the board of selectmen of each of the member towns that a proposal to amend this agreement has been received and shall enclose a copy of such proposal. The selectmen in each member town shall include in the warrant for the next annual or a special town meeting called for the purpose an article stating the proposal or substance thereof. Such amendment shall take effect upon its acceptance by each of the member towns
at such next annual or special town meeting. So that means we could ask for a special town meeting and do a proposed amendment to the agreement. Well, I was also on the regional school agreement committee with Dan way back, and we had all kinds of different school agreements, and I almost think that we might have actually addressed this particular issue when we were looking at it way back when. Under the regional agreement, under assignment of pupils, basically it kind of says nothing, except that if 7/8 of school committee vote can move all your kids. What I am proposing is an amendment to the regional school agreement to replace the wording in section 12 of the amendment and replace the wording with students in kindergarten through grade 5 shall attend schools in their town of residence, except as hereinafter provided. The school committee may determine by a majority vote to assign kindergarten through grade 5 pupils to schools in other than their town of residence in case of an emergency which prevents use of the building in whole or part for enrollment in special education classes or with parental approval. Templeton can request to come to Phillipston. Parents may request attendance in any member town schools subject to the approval of the superintendent. I think that in a nutshell would then solve Phillipston's issue. Let us keep our kids. We'll get Templeton to vote this amendment as well. Because Templeton doesn't want our kids anymore than we want them. So I am asking the selectmen, not necessarily tonight, because it's not really on your agenda, to have a special town meeting, because I know we've had talked about whether we're not going to have one anyway. So do a special town meeting and have this on that town meeting warrant. And I know you don't normally meet next week, but we can do next week meeting for just a special town meeting.
No, you call a special meeting of the board to consider.
You can open, next week, or at your next meeting, you can open and close the warrant for special town meeting, and I believe it's 14 days for posting the special town meeting. So we could theoretically have the meeting in 3.5 weeks. You know, a week from now, you vote it, a week and a half, 2 weeks after that. So,
You could also use it to fix the problem with the library's budget.
I believe there are other issues.
because there are other issues for special town meetings. That's a request.
Yeah.
So, this,
I know, this might be faster.
so this, everybody knows won't be done by September. Because Templeton has to have their town meeting. Templeton has to have a special town meeting. All member towns have to do it. And so it may not be done by September.
Make it an agenda.
And I'm a little confused as to what is the intention of people on here. We want to withdraw from the agreement?
We don't want our kids moved, I think.
Well, I get that. But what direction do you want to go? Do you want to withdraw from the district? Do you want to start amending the agreement? Because that could open up, Templeton could come back with their own amendments. Maybe then we get into things that we haven't discussed yet. The schools are fine.
Then we look at a new district.
Well, and all these ideas, that again is amending the agreement. And before we think about doing that, we should think about what are we going to replace the district with. We can't just say we're withdrawing from the district with no plan as to where the children will be educated. So this is a long process. It will be a long process to withdraw from the district and have a plan in place to educate the children.
Make it a priority.
Well, I agree that it might be on, you know, it might not be by September.
Right.
But I'm asking, and maybe that's where discussion on you, whether or not you're willing to have a special town meeting to try this. I mean, if not, we have to do a citizen petition and then we'll have to act on that, so that just, that's why I'm saying if
We
you.
will try to discuss it.
Yeah. I'm sure we believe in the
I mean, I think it's the first step. That's all that we can do.
Yeah. I'll come back from vacation. I'll come back.
Wednesday for that.
I have an idea.
We open school advisory.
I make a motion that we meet at 6 next Wednesday to discuss these proposals.
Next Wednesday.
Yep.
That meeting here?
Well, motion's made and seconded.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. All those in-
Well, discussion.
That'll be here.
Last time this happened was with Dr. Hammond. Then the town created the school advisory committee. Right, after we got a bunch of, we had some good people on it, Dan Sandin, Ruth French, Tom Speck, I believe it was Janice Howard and me, and we came up with a bunch of solutions. I ask that the town now reauthorize a school advisory committee to gather some answers to guide us in the best direction here. I think that would be the best way to address this. There are too many questions floating around out there. We've got the school committee, we've got Templeton, we've got Phillipston, everybody's at their throats, and we need some answers.
I think that's the only way we would be able to.
I think that would be the best.
So we have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You don't vote. So on that note,
Already asked me to do paperwork for the board and to investigate the opportunity. But I'm not gonna take it on committee to do this part of it. The committee's kind of got us where we are right now.
I have,
So if you give me the 6 weeks that we had discussed, I'm happy to do that and come back in 6 weeks, which would be first part of August. The suggestions and recommendations.
and
Yeah.
I would like to suggest that we invite a representative from ours to our next meeting, not next week, the meeting after that, so that we can hear from someone with experience who understands this issue and can give us guidance going forward. So that, yes, Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools.
I second.
No, we can have this meeting, but we will not have Mars here until a subsequent meeting.
Okay, that's it, moving on.
Excuse me. Tom Speck has a question.
Is there anything legally we can do in the meantime to stop this from happening? Have the selectmen investigated that?
Speck, in response to your question, I can tell you that we've had conversations with council, but because those are conversations with council, I'm not going to state in a public meeting what the strategy is, so that people will know and be able to take steps
Yes.
to try and stop it. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Good.
That was
Moving right along.
Moving along. New business. Right of first review. In your packet,